Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This is Troy from Cichlid Bros. In today's video, we're going to be walking through some of our favorite stocking and cichlid tank ideas. My brothers Quinn and Alec are going to join me as we walk through 10 different options that could hopefully provide some inspiration for one of your next tank setups. We get this question a lot, so hopefully we can provide some guidance throughout this video. And if nothing else, you're at least able to see some cool fish along the way. If you agree with one of these or we missed one, please feel free to leave those down in the comment section. And guys, let's dive right in. Okay guys, so I'm going to start us off with number 10 on the list, which is discus plus some type of schooling fish. Discus are one of the most beautiful fish that you can find in the hobby, and they really are showstoppers in any tank setup. They can really go well with a lot of different schooling fish like rummy-nosed tetras or cardinal tetras. You could also get a school of corydoras for the tank. There are a lot of options for some smaller fish that could go with the discus. I think they would look really great in a planted tank setup, and that actually would help with some of the water quality. The only reason discus are number 10 on the list is just because it can be a little more challenging for fish keepers, as discus do require some pristine water quality and some higher temperatures, so just keep that in mind if you're going to proceed with a discus tank. There are also some cichlids that could potentially go with a discus, such as the ram or the pistogramma, but overall the discus will definitely be the centerpiece of that cichlid tank setup. I'm going to pass it over to my brother Alec for number 9 on the list.
Coming in at number 9 on our list is my first cichlid tank, an Embuna rockscape setup. Embuna do well with large numbers and medium-sized tanks, so it's a good starter tank for someone looking to get into cichlids without breaking the bank on a massive aquarium. I had about 20 at one point in a 55-gallon aquarium. Some can do well in tanks as small as 40 gallons, but as always, the bigger the better. And some Embuna can get to 7 or 8 inches, so they would obviously need something 55 gallons or larger. If you do choose to overstock, make sure you go heavy on the filtration. They do best with either a large variety of males or a couple of harems. The name Embuna means rockfish, so keep that in mind with your tank setup. At number 8, we have a Frontosa colony tank. From Lake Tanganyika, Frontosa are very beautiful and unique fish that have sort of developed a niche following in the hobby. They are huge, slow-moving, gentle giants that do get over a foot long, so a tank of 125 gallons or larger is a must. They do best in large groups of their own kind, but are peaceful enough and can hold their own well enough to go into some hap setups. They are deep water fish that prefer minimal lighting and hiding places to retreat to, like overhang rock backgrounds. They are diggers, so be careful with your rockscape.
Number 7 on the list is an African shell dweller tank. This is one of the most unique cichlid tank setups, and this is my 32-gallon African shell dweller tank that I just set up a few weeks ago. We're asked often what type of cichlids could fit in a 10 or 20-gallon tank, and there aren't a lot of options, but the shell dwellers are a potential. Especially in a 20-gallon long, a shell dweller tank could be a great option. If you just start off with a group of 2 to 5 of these shell dwellers, they'll likely breed very quickly and you'll have a very large colony on your hands very soon, which can be a very rewarding experience, along with just watching the unique behaviors that these guys display every day. They're constantly swimming in and out of their shells, interacting with each other, spitting out sand. They're a very unique fish to keep, and if you can find some in your area, or if you look online, there are some sources that have a lot of African shell dwellers for sale. I got mine from the Cichlid Shack and they came in very healthy and looking great, and I couldn't be happier with the cichlid tank setup that I have right here. African shell dwellers are from Lake Tanganyika in Africa, and as far as tank mates, there are a few that could potentially go well with them as long as they're staying more towards the top of the tank, as shell dwellers are more so at the bottom. I purely went with the shell dwellers as I wanted to establish a colony in my tank, and I'm really looking forward to just having a tank full of shell dwellers, and I really don't need the tank mates to go along with them. Coming in at number 6 on the list is a planted aquarium with relatively peaceful cichlids. You have to be really careful about the types of cichlids you stock in this type of tank. to make sure that they're not eating the plants and also that they get along with each other. But one example is this cube aquarium I have on my desktop with my apistogramma. They're great cichlids for smaller tanks, so if you have a 20-gallon for instance and you're looking for a cichlid that would work well long term, you can maybe get a pair of apistogrammas and some plants in that aquarium. It would be an awesome setup. If you had a bit larger of an aquarium, you could add things like angelfish to a planted tank to just give it an awesome look. You could add some different tetras and potentially barbs to a setup like that to just give it a lot of activity in a beautiful planted tank. If you do go with angelfish, just make sure you're not adding any fish that might nip at their fins, as they are pretty slow movers and I've seen that happen before. This is slightly different than the discus with shoaling or schooling fish just because it doesn't require that extra temperature or water quality, but I do think it's a great setup that could go well in a lot of the smaller to mid-size aquarium setups.
So coming in at number 5 on the list is keeping one aggressive pet fish with limited decor. So the first tank that comes into mind when I think about this is my flower horn tank in my classroom. My flower horn in my classroom is a fan favorite for my students. She has a ton of personality when the students go near the tank, and will even go follow them around. Another good part about this tank is the limited cost for the setup. You don't have to worry about buying sand, plants, decor, etc. Just make sure you have a big enough tank for whichever fish you choose. Some other fish that would be a good choice for this style tank would be some Texas cichlids, or even some Oscars that might be better alone depending on personality and aggression. So coming in at number 4 on the list is keeping a breeding pair tank. This tank can be really simple, but also really rewarding to keep. You can keep a pair of beautiful fish together and hopefully get some fry out of it. We definitely recommend keeping just the pair together because during breeding, most cichlids become extremely aggressive and can even kill some of your fish. Also, the other fish in this tank could eat the fry, even further complicating matters. Some breeder tank ideas would be a 40 breeder for firemouths, a 55-gallon for Cubans, or a 125 for a pair of jaguar cichlids.
Also, thank you to Paul from BigFishLad for sharing the footage of his breeding pairs here. Make sure to give his channel a follow. The link is in the description below.
Coming in at number 3 on our list is the tank you see behind me here, an all-male hap and or peacock tank. I don't have any peacocks in this tank, but an all-male peacock tank is sort of the gold standard for color in a freshwater aquarium. They are very active swimmers and they are relatively peaceful compared to Embunas and large haps. I definitely plan on doing a peacock tank at some point in the future. It is recommended to go the all-male route because these cichlids are dimorphic, so females are an ugly and dull gray color. Also, adding females makes these guys about as territorial as it gets during spawning. It is possible to mix peacocks and certain smaller haps, but there is a group of larger haps that have developed the nickname predator haps, and that's what you see in my tank here. They don't go well with peacocks because of their size and predatory nature. But what drew me to this type of setup was the challenge of having all the biggest, baddest African cichlids in one tank. But it turns out they aren't all that aggressive unless they view another fish as a potential meal. So be careful with having too large of a size gap between fish in a tank like this. The other thing that drew me to predator haps is they are all so unique in size and color and behavior. Peacocks and haps are very active open water swimmers that do not like much of an aquascape. Peacocks and smaller haps can get along just fine in a tank of 75 gallons or larger, but if you want predator haps like these, you need at least 125 gallons, which is what I have, and I still have plans to upgrade to a bigger size because a few of these guys may outgrow the 125 soon.
So coming in at number 2 on our list is the American Predator Tank. For those of you that have been following along on our channel, you know that my predator tank in my classroom is by far my favorite tank. These cichlids are some of the most colorful fish in the hobby. The Jack Dempsey, Green Terror, Convict, and Salvini are just beautiful in this tank. Some other stock options in a tank like this are firemouths, Texas cichlids, Midas, or even a jaguar or Cuban cichlid if you have a large enough tank. I would definitely recommend a tank size of 75 or greater if you want a combination of any of these fish.
Coming in at number 1 on the list is just a South American cichlid community tank. I have my 180 gallon South American cichlid tank here, and it's just one of my favorite all-time setups, and I couldn't be happier with it. A lot of great tank mates can include Geophagus, Severums, electric blue Acaras, even Oscars can work well in a lot of instances. Sometimes green terrors, if you don't get a super aggressive one, can work in this setup. But there are also South Americans like the true parrot, the walrus, the chocolate cichlid that could really work in this community environment. This provides a lot of different types of fish, a lot of different personalities and behaviors. You could have Geophagus sifting through the sand at the bottom while you have Severums gently swimming back and forth. And then that really big pop of blue color with electric blue Acaras. You can scale this down to maybe fit in a 55 or a 75 gallon tank in some instances, especially if you go with some Geophagus Tapajos or the electric blue Acara, as they could potentially fit in something less than a 75. When you start getting into the Severums and especially the Oscars, I would recommend a 75 gallon or larger. If you start getting into the Oscars, I would say a 125 or larger would be ideal. But overall, since these guys are relatively peaceful and some are gentle giants, it's an awesome tank to just sit and watch without stressing out about fish chasing each other or fighting all the time. Obviously, these fish can turn pretty aggressive if they're breeding, but that's not always the case, and you can obviously monitor male and female ratios to make sure that doesn't happen in your tank. But overall, this 180 gallon South American cichlid tank is my dream tank. If I were to ever get a larger tank than the 180, I would probably just stock it with more South American cichlids and just have a larger community, because I love the interaction, behavior, and personality of all the cichlids in this tank. Okay guys, that does it for today's video. I hope today's list gave you some ideas or inspiration for one of your next cichlid tank setups. Don't forget to comment down below with your favorite option that we walked through today, or one that we might have missed. Thanks again for watching, guys. We'll see you next week.